How you doing, guys? One thing that's getting more noticeable as time goes on is the gap between the super wealthy and the rest of the population. It's getting more and more noticeable. See, the wealthy want to get more and more wealth, while the average human seems to be getting poorer and poorer and poorer. Now, there's nothing wrong with having money. There's nothing wrong with wealth. It's what happens up here to those that acquire it. Not all, but many. Now, we all know this goes on in the world of religion, the world of entertainment, and definitely the corporate world all as a whole. But now they're running into a new problem. When somebody's caught with their pants down, what do? Not only do they remove them, but now they have to erase their memory. Now with the internet, it's getting harder and harder to do that. Now I think back last year when Tony Morris was removed as a governing body member. We all remember that. But then Watchtower saw fit to erase him from their website, to take down all his videos. And what was the purpose of that? So you would forget who he was. And it'd be there thinking, okay, Tony Morris, who is he? Is it going to work? Doubt it very much, but this is an issue that all corporations face now because this is relatively new. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't think it is because, frankly, the JWs are not going to forget who Tony Morris is. The ex-JWs aren't going to forget who he is. I started thinking of this largely because this happened again in the world of pro wrestling. The former owner of the largest wrestling company in the world, Vince McMahon, recently was forced to resign his position as executive chairman amid allegations of sex trafficking. Whether it's true or not, I can't say. Recently, the new owners, Endeavor, of World Wrestling Entertainment, saw fit to remove Vince McMahon from the website. There's no further mention of him. But is anybody going to forget who Vince McMahon is? Let me give a little history, first about the wrestling business. Now, the wrestling business industry is believed to have started around the Civil War. A lot of the soldiers would wrestle to kill time, and basically some got very good at it. After the war, they joined the carnivals. Now, this is where the world of wrestling came from, was in the world of carnivals. This is why they have such a carnival atmosphere. They would go around from town to town and challenge the local heroes, and basically these guys were hookers, so they knew how to disable somebody, and they would generally win. Somebody got the bright idea of taking the wrestling out of the carnivals and making it its own entity, and it got very good. In 1934, a loose confederation of territories was put together called the National Wrestling Alliance. Now this basically worked to the point where all the promoters would basically have their own territories and allowed for no competition. Each promoter stayed within their territory. Now they would recognize one world champion that would travel from territory to territory to territory, and that's the way it was up until the early 1960s, where two promotions, one in the Midwest, one in the Northeast, broke away from the NWA. Now the promotion in the Northeast was started in 1952 by Jess McMahon, soon to be taken over by his son, Vincent James McMahon, who stayed in his territory but was very successful. I think it was in 1970. His son, Vince McMahon, had joined the company. Now, contrary to popular belief, Vincent Kennedy McMahon was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He was born in 1944 in Pinehurst, North Carolina. He grew up with his mother in an 8-foot wide trailer and had a god-awful childhood. Now, in the early 1970s, I believe it was 1970 or 71, he joined his father's organization that broke away from the NWA, was renamed the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, and was given a job as a local promoter in Bangor, Maine. Now, over the next year or so, he started pushing the wrestlers to do localized interviews that were inserted into local television. Now, nobody was doing the job, so they started paying Vince Jr. to do this job. He soon after became their play-by-play announcer on their two television broadcasts for the next 25 years. Now, Vince Jr. had a business head. He knew what he wanted to do. In 1979, he and his wife Linda bought out the 5,000-seat Cape Cod Coliseum and started learning about promotion, learning about lighting, how to promote different events. And it was in 1982, early 1980s rather, he noticed his father was getting weary of the business. He and the old owners of the Capital Wrestling Foundation were getting very weary of the business, and it looked like his father was going to sell to another promoter. Vince wanted the company because he was afraid he'd lose his job if he didn't buy it. So he talked his father into selling him the business. His father was not crazy about it because it was a very speculative business, but he and the old owners sold it to him. Had they realized what he was going to do, they wouldn't have sold it to him. Now, soon after he bought it, he started invading other territories. He broke those boundaries. He was the first promoter that ever had done that. And he started offering more money from the wrestlers from other territories to come over to his company. He started putting on localized television in those territories and started growing and stomping those territories out of business. Now this, at the time, nobody believed you could promote nationally. They all believed that it was simply something locally, but he broke that boundary and started promoting nationally. Now the guy was ruthless when it came to business because he literally in a few short years crushed 28 other promotions right out of business. It didn't come with its own downfalls because the thing was he didn't adapt well to his newfound fame. Now the allegations today, I can't say if they're true or not, but you have to go by his history. This I do know. When the god-awful trappings of his awful childhood were replaced by the ticket sales of 93,000 seats in the Pontiac Silverdome for WrestleMania 3, well, it didn't come with his downfall because he didn't adapt well to his newfound fame. On the road was ripe with drugs, women. This is something he selfly admitted, and his wife Linda is well aware of it. The thing was, this continued. As he got wealthier and more powerful, these situations continued. And a lot of times it brought a bad reputation to his company. But he was able to buy his way out and be able to push it aside over the years, up until quite recently. Now the allegations that have come out were quite disgusting. Now many people who don't follow the industry, which was renamed sports entertainment, may not even know about it, but many people do. So recently, he was forced to resign as executive chairman. And recently, the new owners of World Wrestling Entertainment are trying to erase him from the website. Much like the Watchtower did with Tony Morris. Now you look at this guy, and he's no longer there. But with his legacy, with as well known as he is it going to work? No, I doubt it very much, because he was the first promoter that ever did what he did. He's too well known. Thing is, what goes on in their heads? Thing is, when you acquire that kind of power, you've got to be so careful. Because the thing is, it doesn't matter if it's in the religious world, doesn't matter if it's corporate world or entertainment. You start looking at your fellow humans as tools. You start looking down on them. You start using them for self-gratification. You think they owe you. They kind of force people into these positions. I know about the wrestling world, and this is nothing new. Now, Vince McMahon hardly has the worst reputation amongst promoters, but nobody ever said Vince was a saint. I know some of the garbage that goes on within the wrestling business. And basically, it's always been a secretive business. It's a lot more transparent now than it was, but back in the day, everything that went on the inside was kept secret. And it was pretty disgusting what went on. But they start looking at their fellow humans as tools. And this is something that's coming more and more out into the open, what actually goes on. Now, this has been kept quiet for so many years. But this goes on in the world of entertainment as well as the religious world. And this is why these companies are coming under fire, companies like Watchtower. The way they've concealed their child abuse problem for so many decades, but now it's coming out into the open. as well as the world of entertainment. Now with the internet, it's difficult to keep information quiet, and only time will tell if the truth will ever come out. And personally, yes, I think it will. Is Vince guilty of anything? Well, I don't know. I can't say. But he's coming under fire right now. Now, as far as Tony Morris, is he guilty of anything? Well, we may find that out too soon. Anyways, guys, that was just something I wanted to bring out. You all have a good day. I'll be talking to you soon.